to do this. Welcome to my live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm excited. You need to do no, sir. No, listen. The one Saturday Night Live is enough for me. I'm doing this tonight because let me drop on the paper. Monday was International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia, and the Equality for All Foundation Jamaica, they reached out to me to partner with them to do a live to sensitize Jamaicans about issues facing the LGBT community in Jamaica. And I was like, hell yeah, I will. Because I have a lot of friends who are a part of that community. And I know you may have family members or you may have friends who are a part of this community, and we just want to understand them more and see what's happening with them. So yes, I've reached out. I'm doing this live tonight, not my regular Saturday Night Live, but I decided I wanted to do this. So, you know, my platform, I want to use my platform to educate people and, you know, to help bring across issues to people so they can understand it better, so I can understand it better. And I thought, hey, what better way to do this? So tonight is a short live, about half an hour. I just wanted to have a conversation with them, and I want for you all to understand what's happening as it relates to the LGBT community in Jamaica. So I'm just going to go straight into it. My guest is on, and I'll have him talk to you. And of course, you can use this as an opportunity to learn more about the community, because you can ask questions of my guest who is coming on now. All right, so let me just bring him on. All right. Listen, forgive me while I fan. No, sir. You know when you rush to the things, but it's okay. Hi, Nicole.
Hello.
Guys, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Nicole, you coming like you not have the AC like myself. My gosh.
I don't have.
It's
I
hot,
have
man.
no AC. No
We
AC.
not. I to use my fan. I have to use my fan. No man, this thing is serious. Thank goodness it's only we won't be on for long. But first of all, I want to thank you so much for reaching out to me to, you know, be a part of this live as we discuss a very important issue. Because I mean, a lot of us, we have friends who are a part of the LGBT community. We have family members who are a part of the LGBT community. And we just need to understand, because you know what I find? I find that when people don't understand, they kind of try to push it aside or try to dismiss it. So I'm hoping out of this live tonight, we can get some information out there. So Nikolai Wilson, he's a journalist like myself. He started out at CVM Television, like myself, and he went to the Gleaner, and now he's doing advocacy. And he is the policy and advocacy manager for Equality for All Jamaica, right? Right, Nikolai?
Yes, that's
so,
correct.
Let me jump into it. The first thing I want to ask you, the first thing I want to ask you. Tell me about Jamaica's LGBT community. Example, the size and the makeup.
Well, I don't know the size. I don't remember the estimate right now. There is an estimate. But I mean, in terms of just, you know, who is in the community, as you mentioned, you know, some people have friends who are LGBT. Some people have family who are LGBT. So, you know, LGBT people are your co-workers. They're lawyers. They're doctors. You know, they're journalists. They exist in all spaces. They may not be open about it, but they are there, and you most certainly would have interacted with a few LGBT people in your day-to-day life. You know,
all day, every day.
When I take a public taxi and somebody is sitting beside me, you know, they're not necessarily aware that, oh, you know, I work at JFlag, and oh, that I'm at, you know, Open the Game and in Jamaica. But most people would have had some interaction with an LGBT person, because we are, you know, we're everywhere.
Do you find that Jamaicans are more tolerant now of individuals in the LGBT community?
From my experience, I would say yes. Growing up, because I'm from Mandeville, growing up, you know, even just reading the news and watching the news and just seeing comments online, the sort of rhetoric that you would see is, you know, it was all hate and, you know, and hatred, like, you know, for the LGBT community. No, I think because, and I mean, some people will want to say it's, we're becoming more Americanized, but I think people have become more sensitized and they have recognized that LGBT Jamaicans, LGBT individuals are humans just like them. And
Mm-hmm.
so they have no need to fear, or to feel, oh, that, we're going to be pushing on something, onto them. Because when they interact with us, they recognize that we're really not those type of people. I mean, certainly, you're going to have those type of people, just as how you have heterosexual people who, when a man see you on the road, and him like you, he's gonna look you, and when you say no, him probably gonna still pursue you. So you'll have those. You'll have those. So we can't say we don't have those individuals, but certainly Jamaica, I believe, has come a far way, in terms of our tolerance level towards LGBT people like myself.
Okay. You say a far way. We have a way to go.
Yes, we do. We definitely do.
In what area?
I mean, so it's hard not to talk about the discrimination that persists against LGBT people, and not just only against LGBT people, but other vulnerable groups. And so, in terms of how
Mm-hmm.
the nation views LGBT people and how view and how we treat LGBT people, that in that respect, we have a far way to go because you still have a lot of people who, will be violent against LGBT people, who will hurl slurs at LGBT people, not recognizing that this person is a human being as well. And I think it really comes down to how we value each other as well. So I think as a country, we have to learn how to value each other more. We really do. So in that respect, we have a way to go in valuing
Yeah,
each other as human beings.
I know you said violent. I remember like maybe about 10 years ago or something like that, you used to hear about a whole heap of them something that happened. That's still happening?
It does still happen. We
Mm-hmm.
still do get reports. Last year we got a few reports. I not remember the figure right now, but we got a few reports of physical assault. Um, and we also have to consider that there are some people who will not report, and there are just certain things that you will not hear. And I mean, the thing about it too is that what may be reported officially may not necessarily be what people on the ground know. So we also have to
Mm-hmm.
take these things into consideration. And I think also we have to take into consideration the whole culture of violence that exists here, which is something that we need to address on a in a fulsome way.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that individuals in the community now are becoming more open about their sexuality?
I would say yes. I mean, I've only been in King. I've only been oh, well, I've only been living in Kingston for 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
and since then, based on what I have observed,
Mm-hmm.
people definitely have become more tolerant, and because of that, more people feel more comfortable coming out. So you'll find that LGBT people are in spaces are now open, in spaces that they weren't before. So definitely people are feeling more comfortable coming out and
Mm-hmm.
living their truth.
Okay, living their truth. That's a good way to segue into why we're here tonight, and it's about the survey that was commissioned recently to find out how COVID-19 is affecting the LGBT community, and especially, tell me what you found out from the survey. How is it affecting, based on everything that's happening, based on it that the tolerance may not be there 100. How is it affecting the community?
All right. So for COVID, we had 30% of individuals saying that they were unable to pay rent, because they would have lost their jobs, and some of them had to resort to living with family. So that is really how it has affected a lot of people during COVID. In terms of the data, we didn't collect much more than that,
Mm-hmm.
because we did do a needs assessment in 2019, kind of looking more at displacement. And in that survey, we found that about 1/5 of the community, experience displacement or homelessness at some point in their life. And I just want to kind of raise a positive point that around 79% of the community actually said that they never experienced that. And I think that's a good thing to highlight.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still some way to go, because we still have that 1/5 who experiences, and I dare say that there are going to be individuals in the future who are definitely going to experience displacement or homelessness, because of their socioeconomic situation, because they were probably put out by a family, and other factors.
That's still a keep. That's still a go on with family. I put out somebody because
Yes,
I'm gay.
yes, yes, yes. Still happens.
Really?
Still happens. Still
So
happens.
it's not so then it wouldn't be a case where it's COVID-19, but something related to the whole issue of the family not accepting what's happening, right?
Well, here's the thing. So, as it relates to COVID-19, you will have individuals who would have been displaced because their family found out about their sexual orientation and then decided that, okay, you can't stay here. So you will have those cases. But the
Mm-hmm.
majority of cases that we encountered were people really being unable, to pay their rent, and so they had to relocate. Some of them had to relocate to family, and I mean the fact that they can also relocate to family, I would say, is a good thing, because
Mm-hmm.
not many LGBT people have that, quote unquote, luxury, to
That
move back in
support.
with family. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that support. That
So,
support.
so I know, you have JFAG and you have other communities. What kind of programs do you have geared for these individuals?
All right, so I always have to point out that JFlag is primarily an advocacy organization. So what we do is that
Mm-hmm.
we engage several stakeholders, to get the change that we desire.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, we have a helpline where people can call in and get support there, and we have a support services unit that deal specifically with collecting cases. So, the cases of physical abuse, etc., they collect them, and they also collect data on persons who would have been displaced. Now, these individuals, if they're unable to find somewhere to go, whether or not they have there's a lack of family support, or support from friends, there is the Larry Chan shelter, that we will refer them to, but even that is not necessarily adequate. And there's another shelter that we also refer them to, but that isn't necessarily adequate. And so that's really why JFlag is calling on the government to establish more of these drop-in centers, to establish more of these homeless shelters, and shelters that are inclusive, so that LGBT people can feel comfortable, going to these spaces.
Mm-hmm. So you say at present there are two shelters that are would accommodate persons from the LGBT community.
Right, so the Larry Chang shelter is specifically for LGBT people, and then the
Uh-huh.
other shelter, I'm not remembering the name right now, that shelter, we know it as an LGBT friendly shelter. The
Mm-hmm.
other shelters, I think there's a sort of apprehension for people, to go there. And it's really because sometimes they believe they can't cater to their needs, or they will face discrimination there, and that discrimination, as many of us know, can turn out into violence, and we don't necessarily see Javian is saying open arms,
Open arms.
and so
Hey
there is
Jay,
there's a general discomfort with going to other shelters.
I remember back when the acceptance level wasn't so high as it relates to individuals in the LGBT community. You used to find that they used to be like squatters. They just take over some empty house, and I'm talking about some reps in the community, and in order to have a roof over their heads. Do you find now though that they are willing to go into public shelters?
Um, I don't know if they're more willing now, because there's still that apprehension that these shelters that they will experience. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. I
Oh,
forgot to fix
sorry.
my glasses too. Mm-hmm.
Um, that they will experience discrimination. Um, I think though that, I mean, many of them may end up going to many of these shelters because, out of necessity, not necessarily out of comfort, or
Mm-hmm.
being comfortable with going.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um. Who somebody asked this question, and I want to just add a little bit to it. Who are these individuals who you put in that displaced categories? What level are we talking about?
In terms of?
Are these like employed, well, persons who are employed before COVID? What kind of job, them kind of something?
Well, the survey didn't collect that data. Because the survey we specifically commissioned it because we wanted to get a general feel of what support the community needed, so that we could offer some support. So I mean, one of the things that came out of this survey was, you know, giving care packages, which we did 5 times. I don't know the overall number, but we gave care packages. So we don't necessarily have that sort of data where we're looking at, oh, you know, the percentage who are, you know, in this profession, etc., etc. But we do know, though, that quite a number of LGBT people who we have surveyed in the past did indicate that they had a bachelor's degree at least. So we do have a lot of LGBT people who are educated. As to whether or not they're the ones who are displaced, I imagine that some of them may have been, but I can't definitively say, you know, how many of them.
All right.
But that's very good data for us to get, though.
It will be good.
That we should definitely consider for the future, because I think it may be important for Jamaicans to recognize, you know, where LGBT people are in society.
No, but it's not what I recognize that, but they should know. Is the chef where you eat the food from? Is the taxi driver where you drop you from point A to point B? Is the everyday man? It's just everybody. So it's not a matter of knowing. I'm just curious to know, you know, like, are we talking about lawyers, doctors, Indian chief, construct, you know who? But okay, so the next survey that you do will definitely gather that kind of information. So what are you doing now? What are some of the solutions J Flag is proposing to address this issue of displacement within the LGBT community?
All right, so let me just start by saying that the current policy framework is not necessarily a unified, deliberate, you know, effort, so to speak. It's more of a piecemeal sort of thing that's happening. So you have the Board of Supervision, which, you know, supervises and ensures that we have the drop-in centers, etc. So that is happening, but you don't necessarily have a national response to homelessness. So one of the proposals that we have is to create that national response, that national coordinated effort to solving homelessness. So that is one of the solutions that we're proposing. Also, in terms of the policy documents that the government has relating to homelessness, the definition is very limited, so it doesn't necessarily take into consideration individuals who are like you know, couch surfing, for example. So that's one of the things that we believe that needs to be addressed, because, you know, without a more comprehensive view of who these homeless individuals are, you can't really address, you know, the issues. And also, we really want more drop-in centers, more shelters, you know, that where LGBT people can go and feel comfortable going.
But you know, though, you can start within your organization, though, you know, by doing that same thing to find out among the homeless across the island how many of them actually belong to the LGBT community, because that's a good point to start off in terms of your advocacy, in terms of your lobbying effort to help these individuals, wouldn't you say?
I guess it would be good to get, and I know that the data may not necessarily be easy to get, but it's something that we definitely should try and get, because you know, our approach to advocacy is one of intersectionality. So we have to link issues affecting LGBT people, which are affecting the general population. I see Javion's point.
He said the announcement by the local government minister to build facilities might be an opportunity. I agree. And I mean, you can only be a part of that lobbying effort if you can come forward with like numbers to say, listen, you have X number out there. Please provide somewhere that can facilitate my members by
Yes. So the data may be difficult to get, but I think it would definitely be a worthwhile endeavor. Because then, as you know, as you're saying, it would be a very good point of advocacy for us. As we take on an intersectional approach to our advocacy, allowing people to really understand that the issues that they face, LGBT people face, as well, and that the solutions that JFlag is proposing, it won't only affect the LGBT community, but it will affect a wider cross section of persons. I know today Luke would have published an article from a press release that we released, and if you look at the comments, a lot of the comments are, oh, then people have to go away, etc. But a lot of these people don't recognize the implications of what we are asking for, because what we're asking for is for better social security, a better social security net, and a lot of them don't recognize that, and they put it down because LGBT people are included, not recognizing the wider effect of it.
Nicole, I believe more public education needs to be done as it relates to sensitizing Jamaicans. I know we do it all the time, and you say, okay, what? But let me tell you something. You see, I find with Jamaicans, this when they not understand something, it's like them bash it, them dismiss it, instead of trying to understand what it is. Because in truth and in fact, if they do, they will realize that, listen, maybe my brother is sitting beside me right here, so he's a part of this community. Maybe this person who we think I'm a bona fide is a part of the community. I believe maybe public education can help in that way, and I'm hoping that your organization will amp up that, to get. Are you planning anything like that, by the way?
I mean, I agree that public education is definitely something that needs to happen more. And yes, we do have campaigns coming up that will speak, that is geared towards public education. And I think it's something that's very important because, while we engage the stakeholders, including politicians, and business leaders, we also have to engage the public. We also have to sensitize the public, because we have to understand the political realities of our country. We know that the politicians won't necessarily act in a way that is not in their best interest, because they're politicians. It's their job to get re-elected. That's a part of their job. That's a part of them being there. And so while we sensitize politicians and engage politicians and get that feedback from politicians, and I must say that it is in most instances very positive, we also have to sensitize the public so that they can also become more aware and more understanding of the issues LGBT people are facing. And not only the issue, but of LGBT people themselves, recognizing, as I'm always saying, that we're humans just like you. We have goals and aspirations. We also want to start families. We want to live life,
So what's in the, I know we really agree to talk about displacement. But as I wrap up, what would be like your number one issue? What would be like the number one issue for the community?
Wow. The number one issue is discrimination. It's definitely discrimination, because with discrimination comes the homophobia. With discrimination comes the physical assault, the verbal assault. The discrimination is the root of all of that. And people discriminate things that, as you said, when people don't have the information, when they don't understand, they just, as Jamaicans, we just we shrug it off. We're like, oh, whatever, them to go away, whatever. And so that's really it. So it's really sensitized. It's really, discrimination is the biggest issue, and we have to do more interventions in that regard, more public education in that regard, so that people can understand that discrimination in any form, against LGBT people and against others is
everybody.
That is really, unacceptable.
Celine is saying people hearing slowly about it, but just like some families, it's a big pill to swallow. And I guess maybe through education, the pill that might dissolve in some water and be like an easy swallow for people, So I really believe. So you say discrimination is like the number one thing. And I
Definitely.
guess yeah, that would lead to that would be like lead up to different
Really
branches in
does.
terms of like yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and that's why in our advocacy, we always mention the Buggery law. People oftentimes think it's that okay, gay people want to have sex. Gay people are having sex. And in fact, straight couples are having sex as well. It's something that is happening. But the issue with the law is that it treats individuals equally. So and it's hard for me not to mention it, and I'm going to have to say this is a trigger. This is me sending a trigger alert. The 5 men who were the other day implicated in the buggering of the girl. For them, if they're charged with buggery alone, when they go before a court, they only stand to serve a maximum of 10 years. Whereas if it was rape, if buggery was considered rape in the way that it was done, to allegedly done to her, then it would have been about 15 to 25 years. That's usually the range that is used. So it has other implications, not only for the LGBT community, not only breaching our rights to privacy, not only breaching our right to freedom of expression, and not only breaching our right to equality, but also breaching other citizens' right to equality. So it's really that really discrimination, and it's discrimination
Yeah.
within the law as well. That sort of discrimination.
You know, Nikolai, when I'm here looking at you, I'm just a couple years ago you wouldn't have somebody like
Mm.
yourself coming forward, showing your face, discussing this issue, talking up, owning it, owning yourself, let me say, being true to who you are without fear. And I'm really happy that Jamaicans are becoming more tolerant, but I agree we have a far way to go. And I'm just hoping, through these conversations, we can, well, not get it started, but at least continue the discussion so that people can have a better understanding. So Monday was International Day against
Homophobia.
homophobia, biphobia, and
Yeah.
transphobia. Homophobia is the sex with men having sex with men. Biphobia is the if you are bisexual, and of course the transgender gender part of it. So what are you doing? What else do you have planned? What other kind of activities do you have planned for this particular
All right.
period?
So outside of these lives, because we do have another live tomorrow. We
Mm.
also are engaging stakeholders, because during this time is when we really start that engagement of stakeholders. I joined JFlag just over a year ago,
Mm.
and what I'm trying to do is that we're going to kind of shift away from doing the heavy engagement during this time and kind of have it spread throughout the year. So at the start of January, we will be engaging individuals, because this is really the height of our engagement. But I want to change that, because I think we need to be engaging people more constantly throughout the year. But this year, we're engaging stakeholders within government, within private sector, just to sensitize them on how COVID has affected the lives of LGBT people. And because of COVID's emergence last year, we weren't able to do this sort of engagement, because usually we'd have courtesy calls, we'd go to the offices and we would sit down, we'd bring community members with us who would tell their stories to individuals, to the parliamentarians, to the business leaders, to other stakeholders, and the engagement would happen there. So we weren't able to share many details from our 2019 needs assessment. So that is also a part of what we'll be doing throughout this period. And just to say that when Ida Hot comes around, what we do is that we use, so it's not just the day, we use the period following that to kind of use to sensitize individuals about issues affecting the community.
May I encourage you as well as we wrap up to do more lives? I mean today when we were discussing the live, I wanted to have a conversation with someone who has actually experienced, somebody who is in the community who might be experiencing discrimination or experiencing displacement. I think you need to do more lives with individuals like those so people can have a better understanding. They can get first-hand information as to what's going on. Because, you know, people like to know things. And although you say
Yeah.
go leave people come on and listen and fast, you have others who the information will actually sink in, and we can get some change taking place. See what I said?
Yes, yes. I agree. I agree. I agree. It's something that I intend to work on. Javian, as Javian would say that we need to be bold, and so I think that's one way that we can be bold. Because I really think that we have to be in the business of of allowing people to tell their stories,
Yeah,
so
man.
that people can relate and understand that
Yeah.
real people are experiencing these issues.
Because I want to thank you for reaching out to me. I mean, I try to use my live as a platform to do something good. Not the truth. Of course, you have the little Riri and the Tay, but I like at the end of the day that at least something positive, will come out of it. And I'm happy that you reached out to me to partner with you for, to sensitize individuals about what's happening in the community. And I just wanted you to big up yourself and continue doing what you're doing. And I hope your message will get to those who need the knowledge. You see what I said? Oh, Nicole, freeze up. May I talk to myself?
My
All
internet
right.
is failing me.
You hear all of that, Nicole?
Oh, my internet was failing me just now.
Is that?
I heard a little bit.
Know yourself. Whatever can go wrong, Will. That's what this thing goes. But just to say, thank you for reaching out to me. I appreciate it. I always want to use my life to do something to impact somebody or some community. So I'm happy that you have asked me to partner with you on this one. And continue doing what you're doing to educate Jamaicans about the LGBT community. Because the more we know, the better we'll understand what's happening. All right?
Thank you so much.
All right. All right. Take care. Thank you guys for coming on. Remember to join me on Saturday for Live with Dara, when we have another interesting topic. And I'll try to do more of these midweek lives, just to kind of, educate as always. Again, Nicole, thank you very much, guys. Thank you for being on. Take care. All right, Nicole.